Why did the Portland Trailblazers draft Yang Hansen? How's it going, everyone? I hope you guys are all having a great day so far. Today, we need to talk about the Portland Trailblazers and the wild draft night they had last night. Yesterday was the first round of the 2025 NBA draft, and the Portland Trailblazers held the 11th pick, but they made a few moves and made a pretty questionable pick, and we need to talk about that. Before the video gets started, though, guys, please make sure to hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel and have never seen one of my videos. My name's Devin. I cover all things Portland Trailblazers and the NBA, so if you like either of those, hit the subscribe button, comment below your thoughts on the video, and like the video. It helps out and it helps support the channel a lot. So the Blazers had the 11th overall pick, and a lot of people expected them to take a guy like Derek Queen or Carter Bryant or someone else, but instead the Blazers ended up trading it with the Memphis Grizzlies for pick number 16, a future first round pick, and 2 second-round picks. Now, when this happened at first, I was actually really stoked that the Blazers did this. Initially, before Shams reported what the trade was, I was kind of hoping the Blazers were pairing that pick with Jeremy Grant to acquire someone else from Memphis. Not sure if that would be a young guy like Gigi Jackson or someone older. Maybe they did a bigger trade with Jeremy Grant and somehow brought back Jaren Jackson Jr. or whatever, but I had high hopes for it, and overall this trade was pretty good. Given how the draft had played out up to this point, it seemed pretty obvious that there were going to be at least a handful of pretty good and talented players still available at 16, and so the fact that the Blazers were able to acquire another future pick and 2 seconds was pretty good value in my opinion. So then we get to pick number 16, and a lot of people expect the Blazers to draft a guy like Rasheer Fleming or one of the other top prospects available at that spot, but instead the Blazers go out and do something completely unconventional and draft Yang Hansen from China. Now, I don't know about you guys, but before Adam Silver announced his name, I had never heard of this guy. Now, given I'm not the biggest draft guy in the whole world, I usually only really start keeping track of the draft right around March Madness, and then try to follow players up until the draft, but I had never heard of Yang before. And the fact that the Blazers took this guy at pick 16 was one of the biggest reaches ever in NBA draft history. If you look across a lot of people who study draft and do this stuff for a living, most people had Yang going somewhere in the second round between picks 35 and 50. And so the fact that the Portland Trailblazers drafted him at 16 is just wild. And so before we get into my thoughts on Yang as a player and what I think his fit is going to be on this team, let's talk about who he is. Yang Hansen was born on June 26, 2005, and so if you're watching this video the day it's uploaded, today's his birthday. He just turned 20 years old. He's 7'1" with a 7'2" wingspan, so his arms are definitely a little bit short for someone that size. He weighs about 250 pounds and plays center position, and is coming over from China, where he played with the Qingdao Eagles in the CBA, which is just the Chinese Basketball Association. And of course, yesterday he was drafted 16th overall by the Portland Trailblazers. Now, as you guys can see by these highlights on screen, he's quite the player. He's not a guy that just is a slow, big, heavy center that doesn't move well and doesn't get creative. Some of his biggest strengths are actually his passing, his IQ, and court vision, which sounds a lot like Jokic if you're asking me. More of that later though. Let's talk about some of Yang's stats in these past years. So the last 2 years in the CBA have been really big for him, as in the 2023 and 2024 season he played 51 games and averaged 15, 10, and 3 with almost 2.5 blocks per game. He shot 55% from the field, 22% from the three-point line, so that definitely needs a bit of work, and then 62% from the free throw line. But then just this last season, he came back averaging better numbers in every single category. He played 45 games and averaged 16.6 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, and almost 3 blocks per game. And he improved his shooting numbers, shooting 58% from the field, 33% from the three-point line, and 67% from the free throw line. And so over his last 2 years playing in China and in the CBA, he averaged 15.8 points, 10.7 rebounds, 3.5 assists, and 2.5 blocks. And that's shooting 57% from the field, 29% from the three, and 65% from the free throw line. Now, those numbers might not sound super crazy, and who knows how his skill set will translate into the NBA, but that just goes to show you the kind of lockdown defense and the kind of guy he can become. He could definitely become a 10 and 10 guy in the league, which, given his other skill sets, if his scoring doesn't get up past, 15 points per game and he still averages 10 rebounds, a couple blocks, couple assists, then that's a pretty lockdown player that I'm stoked to have. Yang Yang Hansen has been on the come up for actually a couple of years. The Portland Trailblazers said that they've been scouting him for 2 years now, even sending Mike Schmitz and our other assistant GM over to China to scout him just a couple years ago. And it sounds like even last year the Portland Trailblazers in the front office had their eye on him, hoping that he would declare for the draft, but of course we know that he didn't, and so I think they were pretty happy to get him this year. Yang also has quite a handful of accolades over his time in the CBA, as both years he played over there, he was an all-star, he was the Rookie of the Year in 2024, he was the Defensive Player of the Year in 2024, and he played for the All-CBA Domestic First Team both years he was there in both 2024 and 2025. I kind of tease the idea of him having a similar skill set to Jokic, but it's kind of true. His offensive skill and footwork is super advanced, he has soft touch around the rim and advanced post movement, even a bit of ball handling skills. He has great passing and vision and one of the best passing big men outside of the NBA, and there's a reason a lot of people draw comparisons to Jokic. One of Jokic's biggest pluses and skills as a player is, of course, his vision and ability to pass, and there's a bit of that with Yang Hansen as well. He's also great at rim protection, averaging over 2 blocks per game with great timing and discipline around the basket as a whole his 2 years in the CBA. And his rebounding and IQ is a big skill of his, as there's strong fundamentals in boxing out and positioning and leading to consistent double-digit rebounds every single night he's on the court. And of course, at 7'1", he already has an NBA ready frame, being 250 pounds. He kind of already has the body type and the tools to adapt to a more physical NBA. There are some cons with him though that I think people have questioned, and why he was projected to go deeper in the second round. Some of that being which his limited athleticism. He kind of lacks top tier agility and speed, and especially in pick and roll defense, and his just overall physicality. While he might have the frame, he's able to be moved off of his spot by stronger players from time to time, and needs to add a bit of strength and muscle if he really wants to compete in the NBA level physicality. He's also been one to turn over the ball a bit, and so while he might have good ball handles, sometimes he holds the ball a bit too long or overthinks passes when he's under pressure, and that just leads to turnovers. His perimeter defense is also a bit of a weakness for him, as he kind of struggles when he's switched onto quicker guards, and so his lateral movement is definitely a bit limited in that sense. But I think a lot of those things can definitely be ironed out and helped, because it seems like the plan, at least for now, apparently from Joe Cronin, is that Yang Hansen is going to be playing in the G League initially, and depending on what they do with his fit on this team, he might be down there his whole rookie season, but I guess we'll just have to see. That kind of leads me into his fit on this team. What does it look like? I think that's kind of the biggest red flag, and why a lot of people were confused when we drafted him, where we already have 5 centers on the team between Ayton, Robert Williams, Donovan Clingan, of course, who we drafted 7th overall last year, Duop Reith, and now Yang Hansen. So we have 5 centers. What are we going to do with all of them? I think this definitely shows that there's an Ayton or Robert Williams trade on the horizon, because no matter how much you like this guy, if you're not going to be able to give him minutes every night, then there's no point in drafting him. I think there is a level to it where if the Blazers think he's going to have to play in the G League for a while, then they might not be in as big of a rush to get rid of all the centers we already have. Obviously, Clingan they see as the center of the future. Duop Reith could be tossed in to add a little bit of value to a trade, so he's not cemented here or anything. And then you have guys like Ayton, who are kind of the big trade targets, or at least one of the big trade targets for the Portland Trailblazers right now. And then you have Robert Williams, who's only played 26 games for the Blazers his 2 years here. And so if the Blazers trade 1 or 2 of our centers, then I think there is a clear path to giving Yang Hansen some minutes throughout the year. And that's next season, as in the 2026-2027 season, because Robert Williams and DeAndre Ayton are all on expiring contracts now. And so even though the Blazers have 5 centers on the roster currently, if they're going to trade 1 or 2 of them, and then maybe Duop Reith just is packaged in with another trade or isn't re-signed next year, then I can understand the pick. Now, I just want to make it clear though, by no means am I trying to justify this move for the Portland Trailblazers, because no matter how you look at it, this was probably the wrong pick. Even if Yang Hansen turns out to be the next coming of Jokic or Yao Ming, and he's one of the best players the NBA has ever seen, sure, the Blazers would have gotten lucky there, but in the moment when we didn't know anything about it, they made the wrong move. There was much better talent still available there at 16, and they easily could have traded back in order to get Yang if they really thought he was their guy. The Blazers obviously traded back 5 picks, and Joe Cronin said they didn't feel comfortable trading back any further than 16, but given where all the mock drafts were, I don't think Yang would have gone in the first round if it wasn't for the Blazers. Now, of course, you never know, but when you look at roster fit and who else they could have taken at 16, I just don't think there's a way you can justify this being a smart or good pick. Now, my hope here, and I hope hope, this is your hope as well, is that Joe Cronin makes a few moves to smooth out the roster a bit, and he does it fast. Because between this pick and the Drew Holiday trade, this roster is looking a bit clunky and a bit of a mess. But you don't draft a guy 16th to be your 4th or 5th string center, and so to me that just screams that there's a trade on the horizon that maybe we just don't know about yet, maybe it's just not in the cards yet, but it definitely tells you that's the direction they want to go. I just don't see the Blazers, even Joe Cronin, drafting Yang Hansen at 16, expecting him to be a 4th string center. It just doesn't make sense. But Yang Hansen as a player is actually someone I really like. I love his archetype of player. I've always loved those big men who can move quickly, who are good at passing. Maybe they're not the most flashy, maybe they're not dunking the ball left and right, but they're able to pass, they're smart, and they make everyone around them better. And I've mentioned it a few times and people joke, but he truly is similar to Jokic in his skill set. And now who knows, maybe he ends up being a guy like Alperen Sengun, who has a similar skill set to Jokic, but obviously isn't Jokic. And I also like this player because he has an insanely high ceiling, but he has a bit of a low floor right now, and so who knows how his skills will transfer to the NBA level. Of course, coming over from EuroLeague, that's kind of one of the biggest questions, is how will the competition over there compare to the competition over here for him? And so even though I really like his archetype of a player and I'm very interested in his skill set and how he's going to develop, this is one of those picks that I would have absolutely loved and thought it was a home run if the Blazers drafted him around the 30 to 45 range. But the fact that they made moves and traded him almost in the lottery is just pretty insane. And regardless of how he pans out, this is an extremely high risk, high reward move for Cronin and Schmitz and the rest of the front office, because you don't make a move like this unless you're super confident, right? This is one of those moves that Joe Cronin and Mike Schmitz had to have just said, you know what, we know our player, we love Yang Hansen, we're going to take the swing for him, and regardless of what the rest of the NBA thinks, regardless of what the rest of the fans think, we think this is the right move. And so in that sense, I gotta respect them a bit for it. I really hope they're right, and if they're wrong, that could honestly cost them their job. And so we'll see how Yang Hansen pans out, but I'm super excited for him. I'm super excited to see how he fits in alongside the rest of the team, and I'm really excited for the rest of the moves the Blazers make this offseason. Overall, Yang is a rare prospect, a 7-footer with elite vision, passing instincts, and touch around the rim. While his mobility and physicality remains concerns, his basketball IQ, his size, and his potential as a high post playmaker makes him a valuable developmental piece for the Blazers. And with the right team, system, and strength training, he could definitely become a versatile and unique contributor in the modern NBA and to your Portland Trailblazers. If you do want to be kept up to date on all the moves the Blazers make and who they decide to trade for or pick up or cut or whatever moves they make, please hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload, like the video, and comment below your thoughts on Yang Hansen. That's all I have for you guys. I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Peace.